Over the years, cruise ships have faced disasters that have cost billions, claimed lives, and reshaped the industry. From collisions with icebergs in the freezing Atlantic to engine fires in tropical waters, these events highlight the fragility of even the most advanced vessels. Today, we're diving into some of the most infamous and expensive cruise ship disasters in history, rearranging the tailies to trace them through time, starting from the early 20th century and weaving in more recent incidents that show how risks persist even in our modern era. We'll explore what went wrong, the heroic rescues, the staggering costs, and the lessons that have made cruising safer but never entirely risk-free. Let's begin at the dawn of the luxury liner age with the RMS Titanic, a name synonymous with tragedy and a cautionary tale that still echoes over a century later. Launched in 1912, the Titanic was the pinnacle of engineering for its time. Billed as unsinkable by its builders at White Star Line, this behemoth measured 882 feet long, weighed 46,000 tons, and could carry over 2,200 passengers and crew. It required an astonishing 600 tons of coal per day to power its massive engines, shoveled by a team of 176 firemen working in grueling shifts. The ship set sail from Southampton, England, on April 10, 1912, bound for New York City on its maiden voyage, carrying a mix of wealthy elites in opulent first-class suites and immigrants seeking a new life in steerage. But on the night of April 14th, disaster struck in the icy waters of the North Atlantic. Lookouts spotted an iceberg too late, and despite attempts to steer clear, the ship sideswiped it, ripping open 6 watertight compartments along its starboard side. Water flooded in relentlessly, and within 2.5 hours, the Titanic broke apart and sank to the bottom of the ocean, more than 2 miles deep. The chaos was unimaginable. Passengers scrambling for lifeboats, the ship's band playing on to calm the crowds, and desperate cries echoing across the dark sea. Tragically, there were only enough lifeboats for about half the people on board, 1,178 spots for 2,208 souls. Over 1,500 perished, many from hypothermia in the frigid waters, where survival time was measured in minutes. The aftermath shook the world. Inquiries revealed hubris and oversight. The ship had ignored iceberg warnings, sailed at full speed through dangerous waters, and skimped on lifeboats to preserve deck space for promenades. The disaster led to sweeping changes, like the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, SOLAS, in 1914, mandating enough lifeboats for all, 24-hour radio watches, and international ice patrols. The financial toll was immense. White Star Line faced lawsuits and compensation claims totaling millions, equivalent to hundreds of millions today. But the Titanic's legacy endures, not just in films and museums but as a reminder that no ship is truly unsinkable. Its wreck, discovered in 1985, continues to draw explorers and treasure hunters, though it's deteriorating rapidly under the sea's pressure. Fast forward 2 decades to another era of ocean travel, when luxury liners were symbols of glamour amid economic hardship. The SS Morro Castle, built in 1930 for the Ward Line, was a shining example, ferrying passengers between New York and Havana, Cuba. This 508-foot turbo-electric vessel could carry 489 passengers in style, with Art Deco interiors, swimming pools, and verandas. Even during the Great Depression, it remained popular, offering affordable escapes to tropical shores. But on September 7, 1934, while returning from Cuba with 549 people on board, fate intervened in a horrifying way. The trouble started the day before when Captain Robert Wilmot died suddenly of a heart attack, leaving Chief Officer William Worms in command. That night, a small fire erupted in a storage locker filled with writing paper and cleaning supplies. Fed by strong winds from an approaching nor'easter, the blaze spread like wildfire through the wooden interiors and varnish-coated walls. Within minutes, the ship was engulfed, flames leaping 80 feet high. Panic ensued as smoke filled cabins and corridors, and the deck became too hot to stand on. Rescue efforts were hampered. The ship's fire hydrants failed due to low water pressure, and only 6 of the 12 lifeboats were launched, carrying just 85 people, mostly crew. Many passengers jumped into the churning seas, where waves up to 20 feet high made swimming nearly impossible. By morning, the burning hulk ran aground off Asbury Park, New Jersey, becoming a macabre tourist attraction as crowds gathered on the beach. In total, 137 lives were lost, 86 passengers and 51 crew. Coast Guard cutters and local boats rescued the survivors, but the delay in response was criticized. Investigations pointed to multiple failures, inadequate fireproofing, poorly trained crew, and suspicions of arson, though no cause was definitively proven. The financial hit was staggering, over $4 million and $1,934, about $90 million today, including the ship's total loss and settlements. The Morro Castle spurred reforms in ship design, mandating fire-resistant materials and better emergency protocols. Its charred skeleton was eventually scrapped, but the disaster lingers as a stark warning about fire at sea. Jumping ahead to the late 20th century, we encounter the SS Océanos, a French-built liner that had sailed under various flags since 1952. By 1991, owned by Greek company Eperotiki Lines, the 500-foot ship carried 571 passengers and crew on coastal cruises along South Africa's wild coast. Captain Giannis Avranas, with 30 years at sea, seemed a steady hand. But on August 3, 1991, during a voyage from East London to Durban, a violent storm with 40-knot winds and 30-foot waves battered the vessel. The ordeal began when an explosion, likely from a failed ventilation pipe, allowed seawater to flood the engine room. Power failed, pumps stopped, and the ship began listing heavily. No alarm was sounded, and passengers, many elderly, were left in the dark as water rose. When some ventured to the bridge, they found it abandoned. The captain and senior officers had fled in lifeboats, leaving entertainers like guitarist Moss Hills and magician Julian Butler to coordinate the evacuation. Hills used the radio to call for help, and South African Navy helicopters airlifted all 571 people in one of the largest maritime rescues ever, with no fatalities. The captain's abandonment drew global outrage. Avranas claimed he left to organize rescue from shore, but he was convicted of negligence. The Oceanos sank the next day, a total loss costing millions in insurance and salvage. Hills later created OceanosSinking.com to document the event, sharing survivor stories. This disaster underscored the importance of crew accountability, leading to stricter SOLAS rules on abandoned ship procedures and muster drills. Entering the 21st century, fires and mechanical failures dominate the narrative, starting with the Carnival Splendor in 2010. This 113,000-ton Concordia-class ship, operated by Carnival Cruise Line, departed Long Beach, California, on November 7th for a 7-day Mexican Riviera cruise with 4,500 passengers and crew. On day 2, a fire erupted in the aft engine room due to a catastrophic diesel generator failure, destroying electrical cables and knocking out all power. The fire was extinguished quickly, with no injuries, but the ship was adrift 150 miles off Mexico. Without electricity, air conditioning failed in the tropical heat, refrigerators spoiled food, and toilets backed up. Passengers endured sweltering cabins and spam sandwiches airdropped by used Navy helicopters. Surreal sight for a luxury cruise. Tugboats towed the Splendor to San Diego over 3 days. Carnival refunded all fares, covered expenses, and offered free future cruises, but many declined. The incident cost about $100 million in repairs, lost revenue, and compensation, prompting fleet-wide generator upgrades. Just 2 years later, in 2012, the Costa Concordia met a fate that rivals the Titanic in infamy. This 114,000-ton ship, flagship of Costa Cruises, a Carnival subsidiary, left Civitavecchia, Italy, on January 13 for a Mediterranean cruise with 4,229 people aboard. Captain Francesco Schettino deviated from the route for a sail-by salute near Giglio Island, but struck an underwater rock, tearing a 160-foot gash in the hull. The ship listed severely, partially capsizing off the coast. Evacuation was chaotic. Alarms delayed, lifeboats jammed on the tilted deck, and Schettino abandoned ship early, famously told by a Coast Guard officer to get back on board. Rescuers saved most, but 32 died, including crew and passengers who drowned or fell. The salvage was epic. The wreck was barbacled upright in 2013 using massive sponsons, then towed to Genoa for scrapping in 2014, taking 5 years. Total cost: $2 billion, including victim compensation and environmental cleanup. Schettino served 16 years for manslaughter. The disaster led to mandatory route adherence, enhanced bridge resource management, and muster drills before departure. The following year, 2013, brought the infamous poop cruise aboard the Carnival Triumph, later renamed Sunrise. This 102,000-ton Destiny-class ship left Galveston, Texas, on February 7 for a 4-day Cozumel trip with 4,229 aboard. An engine room fire, caused by a fuel line leak, was doused automatically, but power was lost, stranding the ship in the Gulf of Mexico. Worse, sewage systems failed, flooding decks with raw waste, creating unbearable odors and health risks. Passengers camped on decks to escape the stench, surviving on limited food. Tugs intended for Mexico, but currents pushed north to Mobile, Alabama, arriving after 5 days. While docked for repairs, high winds snapped moorings, causing a collision with a U.S. Army dredge, gashing the stern and killing a dock worker. Repairs delayed further. Carnival's $80 million bill included refunds, upgrades, and a fleet review, adding backup generators to all ships. As we move into more recent years, storms and mechanical woes continue to plague cruises. In 2016, Royal Caribbean's Anthem of the Seas, a 168,000-ton Quantum-class giant, sailed from Bayonne, New Jersey, into a forecasted storm despite warnings. With 4,500 passengers, it faced hurricane-force winds up to 150 miles per hour and 30-foot waves. The ship tilted violently, shattering furniture, flooding cabins, and injuring dozens. Passengers were confined to rooms for safety as water cascaded down stairwells. The vessel returned to port battered but intact, costing millions in repairs and compensations. It highlighted poor decision-making in weather routing, leading to better forecasting protocols. In 2018, Norwegian Cruise Line's Norwegian Breakaway, a 146,000-ton ship, encountered a bomb cyclone off the U.S. East Coast during a Bahamas cruise. Winds over 100 miles per hour and massive waves caused extensive damage, broken windows, flooded areas, and injuries to passengers thrown about. The ship limped back to New York with Norwegian issuing refunds and credits. The event, costing tens of millions, reinforced the need for adaptive itineraries in severe weather. One of the most dramatic recent incidents occurred in 2019 with the Viking Sky, a 47,800-ton luxury ship from Viking Ocean Cruises. On March 23, carrying 1,373 people off Norway's Hustadvika coast, all 4 engines failed in a fierce storm with 26-foot waves and 50-knot winds. The ship drifted toward rocky shores, nearly grounding. Anchors held just in time, but evacuation began via helicopters, airlifting 479 passengers in harrowing conditions, some injured during the process. The rest were towed to Mold after partial power restoration. No fatalities, but the scare cost Viking over $50 million in repairs and claims. Investigations blamed low oil levels in rough seas, leading to new lubrication standards. In 2022, fire struck again on the Carnival Freedom during a Caribbean cruise. On March 24 off Grand Turk, the ship's iconic whale tail funnel caught fire, possibly from exhaust issues. Flames and smoke billowed, but the crew contained it quickly with no injuries. The ship continued, but a later funnel collapsed in May during another fire canceled voyages. Costs exceeded $20 million, prompting design reviews for funnels. That same year, Nature's Fury hit the Viking Polaris, a new expedition ship, during an Antarctic voyage. On November 29, a rogue wave smashed windows on Deck 2, flooding cabins and killing 1 passenger, injuring 4. The ship, with reinforced hull for polar waters, returned to Ushuaia, Argentina. The incident, costing millions, emphasized rogue wave risks in remote areas, spurring advanced wave detection tech. These disasters, spanning over a century, have racked up billions in costs, from the Titanic's era-defining loss to recent mechanical and weather woes. They've driven innovations, redundant systems, better training, satellite monitoring, and stricter regulations. Yet the sea remains unpredictable. Modern ships are safer, with features like azipod propulsion for maneuverability and AI for hazard detection, but human error and nature's power persist. As cruising booms post-pandemic with bigger ships like Icon of the Seas carrying 7,000, vigilance is key. These stories remind us that while cruises offer wonder, respect for the ocean is essential. Through tragedy, the industry evolves, aiming to prevent the next headline-making mishap. Thanks for watching.